Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Afrinesh Amanat, and in today's lecture I will teach you about right-sided heart failure. It is usually the result of left-sided heart failure because any pressure increase in the pulmonary circulation produces an increased burden on right side of the heart. Its causes include all of the causes that induce left-sided heart failure. Cor pulmonale. Isolated right-sided heart failure is infrequent and it is known as cor pulmonale. Don't get confused by this term if you get an MCQ regarding cor pulmonale. The causes of cor pulmonale include pathology in the pulmonary parenchyma, pulmonary embolism, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and pulmonary fibrosis, and some other conditions. They can result in isolated right-sided heart failure. And here you can appreciate cor pulmonale predominantly affects the right side of the heart. Besides the parenchymal lung disease, cor pulmonale also may arise in primary pulmonary hypertension. It is idiopathic, its cause is not known, recurrent pulmonary thromboembolism, or conditions that cause pulmonary vasoconstriction. The common feature of these disorders is pulmonary hypertension. And in cor pulmonale, I've already told you the myocardial hypertrophy and dilation are confined to the right side. The major effect of right-sided heart failure is engorgement of the systemic and portal venous system. This is the main differentiating point between the right and left-sided heart failure. In left-sided heart failure, I told you the main features are shortness of breath, crackles or rales at the lung bases, tachypnea. And in right-sided heart failure, the features are congestion of the organs of the body, hepatomegaly, splenomegaly, ascites, dependent pitting edema, and raised jugulovenous pressure. Now coming to the morphology, the liver is usually increased in size and weight. This is known as congestive hepatomegaly. And on histology, if you see the cut section, you will appreciate passive congestion, and this pattern is known as nutmeg liver. Now what is nutmeg liver? Nutmeg liver is basically that its appearance resembles that of a spice. You can appreciate this is the appearance of the liver in congestive hepatomegaly, and this appearance is known as nutmeg liver. Congestive centrilobular areas are surrounded by peripheral, paler, non-congested parenchyma. These are the centrilobular areas, and you can appreciate they are congested as compared to the peripheral areas, which are paler and less congested. When left-sided heart failure is also present, severe central hypoxia produces centrilobular necrosis. The centrilobular area, it undergoes necrosis. With long-standing severe right-sided heart failure, the central areas can become fibrotic, and this is called cardiac cirrhosis. Here you can appreciate the centrilobular area is congested, and ultimately there will be necrosis and fibrosis of this area, and this is known as cardiac cirrhosis. Right-sided heart failure can lead to elevated pressure in the portal veins and its tributaries. This is known as portal hypertension, and ultimately the increased pressure will be transmitted back to the visceral organs. Vascular congestion produces tense enlarged spleen. This is known as congestive splenomegaly, and it can also cause congestion and edema of the bowel wall, and it will interfere with the absorption of nutrients and medications. There will be development of edema, transudate in the pleural and pericardial spaces. You have already studied the difference between transudate and exudate in third year. When there is a combination of hepatic congestion and portal hypertension, it can eventually lead to transudate in the peritoneal cavity. This is known as ascites. Edema of the dependent portions of the body, especially the feet and lower legs, is hallmark for right-sided congestive heart failure. And in bedridden patients, presacral edema can also develop. Here the slide shows you the features of right and left-sided heart failure. The features of left-sided heart failure are cough with frothy sputum, orthopnea, and paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea. I've told you the pathophysiology in the previous lecture, how these symptoms develop. And in right-sided heart failure, we have just studied that there will be congestion of the peripheral tissues, and dependent edema and ascites, congestion of the liver, and GI can develop. Now I will briefly discuss the congenital heart diseases. They represent defects of cardiac chambers or great vessels, and they can result in shunting of blood between the right and left side of the circulation. Environmental and genetic causes, they both contribute. There can be left to right shunt or right to left shunt. Malformations associated with left to right shunts are most common, and they include atrial septal defect, ventricular septal defect, and patent ductus arteriosus. Shunting results in right-sided volume overload that eventually causes pulmonary hypertension and reversal of flow. In this case, the shunt shifts from right to left and cyanosis develops. This phenomena is known as Eisenmenger syndrome. When there is left to right shunt, it leads to increased pulmonary blood flow, increase in pulmonary vascular resistance, and ultimately there will be reversal of the shunt from right to left. This is known as Eisenmenger syndrome. Malformations associated with right to left shunts include tetralogy of Fallot and transposition of great arteries. These lesions cause early onset cyanosis, therefore they are also called cyanotic heart diseases, and are associated with polycythemia, hypertrophic osteoarthropathy. There is development of certain lesions in bones, and paradoxical embolization. This diagram shows you the four components of tetralogy of Fallot. There will be ventricular septal defect, then pulmonary stenosis, hypertrophy of the right ventricle, and overriding of aorta. This slide shows you transposition of the great vessels. The aorta, it is opening in the right ventricle, and the pulmonary artery is opening in the left ventricle, and it is incompatible with life unless there is coexistent atrial septal defect, ventricular septal defect, or patent ductus arteriosus. Obstructive lesions include aortic occultation, and its clinical severity depends on the degree of stenosis and patency of the ductus arteriosus. This is coarctation of aorta. Here you can appreciate that it is occurring distal to the subclavian arteries. The subclavian arteries supply blood to the upper limbs. Therefore, there will be increased blood pressure in the upper extremities, and radial pulses will be bounding as compared to the femoral pulses. After coarctation of aorta, this is the blood supply of the lower limbs, and therefore the femoral or popliteal pulses will be weak, and patient will develop leg pains, fatigue. Narrowing of aorta causing obstruction of left ventricular blood flow. Thank you, class.